What's a technology we currently have that most people don't think exists? Targeted cancer radiation therapy using a radiation needle to irradiate a tumor from the inside, limiting exposure of normal tissue cells. Well, not sure if it's technology, but we have discovered and are in the process of creating hybrid oyster mushrooms that eat and disposes of plastic and oil and could be the biggest thing in waste management and oil spills ever. The ability to 3D print metal still kinda messes with me a little. I mean, plastics and resins make sense, and even though I know how the technology works and I've seen it in action, the ability to print metal still seems like magic to me. There have been working jetpacks since the 80s at least. The government developed a gun that shoots an extremely tiny needle that the victim doesn't feel and is able to kill them with a heart attack. The needle has a poison or some sort of substance that can get to the heart and dissipate, so it cannot be found anywhere in the body during an autopsy. I read about it somewhere and I really wish I could find the source. If I do, I'll update. It's extremely interesting and terrifying. Nuclear-powered rocket engines have been possible since the 1960s at least. Pros: way better fuel-to-thrust ratio than conventional rockets. Cons: radiation coming out the back. It would never be usable within the atmosphere, but if used in space, say between planets, the radiation wouldn't be that much more of a concern. Dumping radiation into space is like spitting into a river made out of spit. Ad blocking technology for the web. I'm still amazed that less than half the people know about it. It's a simple click, grandma. Large ultra-powerful railguns which can fire projectiles at Mach 7. A reverse Google image search, you just put in the picture and it will show you either similar or the exact same picture and where it came from. Drones that look like birds. Deepfakes, and it kinda freaks me out that it doesn't seem to freak everyone else out. I usually don't care about, well, anything, but the first time I heard about it and saw it I let out an audible gasp. And that was a few years ago now. Nothing is real. Indicators aka blinkers. Cloning. It's high risk and highly illegal due to the amount of moral issues, but we can clone an entire human being. Laser weapons that can bring down planes and sink ships with one shot. Nanotechnology. You can do so much with nanotechnology. Actual invisibility, sorta. Military and scientists have successfully made something invisible. An ant. Technology that allows for perfect editing of a video to make people on the video say whatever you want them to say and have it look like they said it. If you think the era of fake news is bad now, wait until politicians and nations fully get a hold of the possibilities of this. I don't know how we'd be able to trust anything we see in media ever again. A method to safely eradicate dangerous diseases for the whole population. The only problem, it requires participation from the whole population and some people are literally too stupid for their own good. Apparently, search engines. I swear, majority of the questions being asked on social media or anywhere else online could be answered in a few minutes just by typing in your question on any search engine you prefer. You can convert atmospheric carbon into petrol. Cloning. You can clone basically any animal, they've done it with sheep and even household pets people don't want to die. Co-authoring in Microsoft Office. 2 or more people can edit an Office document at the same time. Mind blown. You know the enhance meme from CSI? It's a growing area of research called super resolution and the techniques developed so far are pretty impressive already. Judging by the number of incredulous questions every time someone on the internet says they're blind, assistive technology for blind people that lets them use their computers and smartphones. Like, voice commands and text-to-speech have existed for decades. We've had the technology to turn the frogs gay for decades now. Iron Man exosuits. I mean, it's not even at the first movie level of course, but the biggest hurdle by far is powering it. They have to be plugged in with current battery technology. Once they overcome that, it wouldn't be long before it's at superhero level. They've created a genetically modified version of a fungus that only infects mosquitoes, but only killed them very slowly. So they inserted a gene that makes it produce spider venom inside the mosquitoes' bodies, devastating mosquito populations within 2 generations of introduction. They've also made a strain of cotton that produces edible seeds. This means poor agricultural regions growing cotton for trade can produce as much or more edible foodstuffs as cotton from the same harvest with no additional effort or energy expenditure. You can make a full 3D metal cutting CNC milling machine from YouTube videos for about $800. There is free, easy 3D software. 15 years ago, if it existed at all, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. Money transfers in less than a minute. In my country, everyone has the ability to open their phone, access their account and transfer money to someone else instantly. Yet every single American I speak to has to wait 1 to 3 days to transfer money. Get with the times. Vaccines. Probably the scariest technology available now is the Chinese government attempt to monitor their population. Through forcing all internet and cell phone companies to give them access to the data and using facial recognition cameras and big data algorithms, they are assigning everyone a social score. Love tapping your phone to buy things? What happens when the GOVT correlates lost time at work, medical expenses and excessive purchases of alcohol? Or if you start deviating from your normal routine and frequenting a bar associated with known political dissidents? George Orwell's 1984 is becoming possible today for authoritarian govs. Tiananmen Square will never happen again because the organizers will be arrested before it begins. The second page of search results. The number of people whose jaws drop open when I pay with my Apple Watch or iPhone continues to astound me. The fact that Theranos are able to analyze our health factors from just a few drops of blood. Thank you, Elizabeth Holmes. Oh wait, never mind. Advanced monitoring of internet use. Things like Cisco Meraki can track from the macro country level down to the individual unit, thoroughly describing everything about the computer, even with a VPN or an incognito, different than usual browser. All the Reddit browsing or whatever it may be you do at work can be tracked 1-to-1 by whoever has access to that. Also, with just a little bit more configuration and whatnot, any available webcams and microphones can listen, view in as well, unless the machine is totally off. Hitting the power button on a phone doesn't disable the microphone from listening. Fully functional prosthetic. Attached to the bone, nerves, and muscle. Someone with one of these bionic limbs can feel how much force is being applied and etc., minimizing the disconnect between user and limb. Next up is working on feeling with the limb. As far as I'm aware, we're not quite there yet. My husband works with some older guys who don't believe we will ever have self-driving cars, even though they are actually a thing, like right now. They think it's some sci-fi made-up bullshit. Lasers always get me. People don't seem to know how far lasers are, developmental-wise. They are actually extremely common in manufacturing, and not just for etching. I've seen laser cutters in small manufacturing shops that will cut through a couple inches of steel. Dolly the sheep was cloned in 1996, 23 years ago. Do you think we stopped after this? Street cameras that remember you, your car and the last time you were in that area. Some cities are starting to have these all over the place. When your car goes through an intersection, it shows the time you were last there. They also produce heat maps of popular pathways. This is being used to catch drug dealers. The cops may know a dealer lives in the vicinity, so they go to the camera, which will produce a line wherever someone walks. The more people walk that line, the more red it becomes. Starts green, then yellow, then red. Find the door with the most traffic and boom, there's your dealer. I remember I had a boss who used to work for the NSA, in the supercomputing area. He said whenever there was a news story about some company like IBM breaking a computing record or milestone, they'd all laugh about it because they had crossed the milestone years, sometimes decades before. He also said as far back as the 80s they had satellite imaging technology that could pinpoint and monitor anyone on Earth at any time. Can't imagine what shit they have now. Rather rudimentary in the context of these other great references, but the fact that water can cut metal. It is a technology utilized in everyday manufacturing. People are still always amazed to find that out. Advanced chat AI. Companies, groups are mass-regging Reddit and other social media accounts and auto-commenting and joining conversions on a broad range of topics to influence public opinion. Think of Cleverbot X100,000. Google has successfully made an actual hoverboard, it's just that can't make it any bigger than a toy skateboard you get in a kid's meal. Identification of a person. Chinese scientists and engineers have been able to identify a person no matter what way they are facing. Each person has a different way of holding themselves and walking around. If analyzed properly, allows you to identify a person even if they are walking away from you in a crowd. I once tried to explain to someone that most intercontinental internet traffic is sent on fiber optic cables on the ocean floor. She was convinced that it was mostly done via satellite. There's also this annoying misconception that cell phones communicate with satellites, which would make them satellite phones if people would stop and think about it. Not cool and futury, but savings bonds are sold and maintained electronically. We can map an entire house, building, etc. by hacking into the wireless routers for the internet. It works like sonar but with the radio waves sent out from the router. Cloud seeding. Controlling the weather isn't sci-fi, they've known how to do it since Vietnam. They've probably only improved on it since then. Airplanes are just flying cars. They have wheels, and they fly. They're a whole lot bigger than cars and actually maybe better than flying cars. More room to stretch your legs and stuff. Controlling drones, quadricopters with your mind. They even had a race with the BMI, brain-to-machine interface. Thorium molten salt reactors. That Photoshop for your voice technology that essentially allows you to make anyone say anything you want if you have a sample of their voice.